Everyone out there in the firearms community treats the Ruger 1022 like it is some kind of indestructible backyard plinking god that can do no wrong. And look, I will be the first to tell you, it has earned that legendary reputation over the decades because it is a workhorse that simply refuses to quit, even when you feed it the cheapest, dirtiest bulk ammo you can find. But here is the real deal. What the guys at the gun store or the glossy marketing team rarely talk about are the factory shortcuts, those weird magazine quirks, and the tiny precision setup moves that actually dictate whether your groups look like a total mess or absolute match-grade perfection. Most shooters just pull this rifle out of the box and hope for the best. But today, I am pulling back the curtain on the stuff Ruger does not put on the box. We are talking about the small, tactical modifications and maintenance secrets that actually move the needle. I am going to prove to you that this Rimfire platform is capable of way more than the factory lets on, provided you know which screws to turn and which parts to toss in the trash. The trigger truth and the 2-pound dream. Now, most people will tell you the factory trigger on a 1022 is fine, but in the world of precision shooting, fine is just another word for holding you back. I grew up thinking that heavy, mushy 5-pound pull was just the price you paid for a reliable rimfire, until I finally ran a customized build against a factory standard receiver and realized how much accuracy I was leaving on the table. When you pull a standard model off the shelf today, you are likely looking at a trigger weight sitting somewhere between 4.5 to a staggering 6 pounds. On top of that heavy weight, the break usually feels gritty, almost like you are dragging a piece of rusted metal across a gravel driveway. And that makes those slow, breath-holding shots at 50 yards nearly impossible to keep consistent. If you want to actually shrink those groups and stop chasing flyers, you have got 3 distinct paths to achieving a crisp, repeatable break. First, you have the most cost-effective route, the Ruger BX trigger. This is a complete drop-in housing that is a safe, factory-authorized swap. It drops your pull weight down to a much more manageable 2.5 or 3 pounds. It is not exactly a hair trigger, but it is night and day compared to the stock unit, offering a cleaner reset that helps you stay on target during rapid fire. Your second path is for the shooters who want zero compromises and sub-MOA results. You start looking at high-end names like Timney, KIDD, or Vokwartsen. These are single-stage race kits that can get your pull weight down well under 2 pounds. They often feature adjustable shoe geometry, allowing you to change the physical reach and angle of the trigger to fit your hand perfectly. The third path is the old-school way, a careful gunsmith-style polish. If you have the right stones and a lot of patience, you can lightly stone the contact surfaces to remove that factory grit. This can smooth out the take-up and create a much more predictable break without even changing the original sear geometry. However, regardless of the path you choose, remember that a lighter trigger demands a higher level of safety and training. You need to spend time with snap caps to learn exactly where that new wall is and confirm all your safety functions are working perfectly before you ever head to the range with live match ammunition. Once you make the swap, the rest of the 1022 upgrades usually just click into place, because now the rifle is no longer fighting you every time you squeeze the trigger. The ghost warranty and the customer service safety net. Now, let's address the elephant in the room that usually scares the living daylights out of first-time gun buyers when they actually sit down and read the fine print in the owner's manual. Ruger, one of the biggest names in the American firearms industry, legally chooses not to offer a formal, written warranty on the 1022 or any of their other platforms. On paper, that sounds like they are hanging you out to dry, but there is a very specific legal reason for this. It all comes down to a piece of legislation called the Magnus and Moss Act, which places some pretty heavy-handed regulations on how companies have to define and manage full or limited warranties. By choosing not to play that game, Ruger actually gives themselves more flexibility to take care of you, the shooter. In the real world, this non-warranty has actually transformed into one of the most legendary customer service operations in the entire history of the shooting sports. I have spent years tracking owner reports across every major firearm forum and talking to guys at the range, and the story is almost always the same. Even if you bought your 1022 second-hand at a pawn shop or inherited it from your grandfather, If that rifle has a legitimate factory defect, Ruger tends to step up and make it right. We are talking about a company that frequently issues what is called an RMA, a return authorization number, and in many cases, they will even send you a prepaid shipping label, so it does not cost you a dime to get the rifle back to the factory. I have seen them replace entire barrels, bolts, and trigger groups, or even swap out the entire rifle if the receiver was out of spec, all with minimal hassle and zero legal wrangling. That historical goodwill is the exact reason why these rifles hold so much of their resale value on the used market. If you do run into a snag, here is the tactical way to handle it. First, make sure you actually register the firearm on their website. If something goes south, don't just complain on the internet. Give their customer service line a call, be polite, and clearly explain the issue. Photograph any defects before you ship the gun in, keep your tracking info handy, and follow their packaging instructions to the letter. The vast majority of shooters who take these basic steps walk away as lifelong Ruger fans. In short, the lack of a formal warranty isn't an abdication of responsibility. It is a legal choice that actually ends up being a net win for you in the long run. Moving right along into the nuts and bolts of what actually makes this rifle shoot. If you've been frustrated by a 1022 that just won't settle into a tight group, this next part is for you. The accuracy science, torque, bands, and harmonics. I keep hearing folks at the range swear that their 1022 is a tack driver right out of the box, but then I watch them head over to the 50-yard line and start chasing flyers all over the paper. Usually, they'll end up blaming the wind or a bad batch of ammo, but more often than not, the culprit is the mechanical setup of the rifle itself. You see, the factory setup is biased heavily toward it always goes bang reliability, and Ruger makes a few design choices that can nudge your groups much wider than they actually need to be. The first thing you have to look at is the stock pressure on the barrel. If you're running the classic carbine model, you've got that iconic barrel band and some pretty tight wood or synthetic inletting. That band might look cool, but it can put uneven pressure on the barrel, which absolutely wreaks havoc on your barrel harmonics, especially as that steel heats up after a few magazines. There is a very specific reason why Ruger's high-end target models skip the barrel band entirely. You can test this yourself with the paper test. Take a thin strip of paper and try to slide it between the barrel and the stock, starting from the tip of the forend and moving back toward the receiver. If that paper snags or gets stuck anywhere, you've got a contact point that is messing with your accuracy. To fix this, you either need to lightly relieve those high spots on your factory stock, or, better yet, upgrade to a free-floating aftermarket stock like the Magpul X22, or a Hogue overmolded option. Giving that barrel room to breathe is the fastest way to turn a meh carbine into a legit rimfire trainer. But it doesn't stop at the barrel. One of the most overlooked secrets is the takedown screw torque. Your entire action beds into the stock using just one single screw. If you just crank that screw down as hard as you can, or if the tightness is inconsistent every time you clean the gun, your point of impact is going to wander all over the place. I highly recommend using an inch-pound torque driver. I usually set mine somewhere in the high teens, around 15 to 18 inch-pounds, and then I recheck it after a few trips to the range. The same logic applies to the V-block, that little clamp that holds the barrel into the receiver. You want those two screws to be even and snug, but for the love of all things tactical, do not get gorilla tight with them. You want to find a reassembly routine and stick to it. Seat the receiver into the stock the exact same way every time. Verify that the barrel is perfectly centered in the channel, and then apply your consistent torque. Consistency is the only way to win the accuracy game. Mag management and the rotary system. The Ruger rotary magazine is absolute king in the rimfire world, but don't let anyone convince you it is magic. I have personally picked up more hard-earned lessons about feeding reliability from messing with magazines at the range than I ever did from reading a factory manual. Ruger's rotary BX10 is a piece of engineering brilliance because of its simple, circular design. And when it is maintained properly, it feeds 22 LR rounds like a dream. However, the second you get lazy with maintenance, that dream turns into a nightmare of failure to feed malfunctions. Most of your feeding headaches can be traced back to just three main culprits: grit buildup inside the rotary chamber or on the feed lips, spring fatigue from being left loaded for years, or a follower that has seen better days. When a mag starts acting up, don't just toss it in the range bag and forget about it. You need to take that suspect magazine apart, scrub the internals clean of that waxy Rimfire carbon, and inspect your followers for any tiny chips or cracks that might snag a casing. One of the biggest mistakes I see shooters make is over-lubricating the rotor. People think more oil means more speed, but in the Rimfire world, oil is a magnet for grit, lead shavings, and unburnt powder. You want that rotor to be dry and smooth. If a spring feels weak or a follower looks worn, don't try to Bubba a fix. Ruger replacement parts are cheap and easy to find, so just swap the old pieces out for new ones. Now, let's talk about the geometry of the ammo itself, because it will humble you real quick. Cheap bulk box ammunition often has wildly inconsistent case lengths and rim thicknesses. This causes the rotary magazine to index poorly, especially on those last 2 or 3 rounds in the stack. And if you are running hypervelocity rounds, or those ultra-light match loads, the timing of the bolt can change just enough to cause a hiccup in the feeding cycle. My tactical advice? Treat your magazines like precision components, not pieces of plastic junk. I suggest testing at least 3 different loads per magazine to see which brand of ammo leaves the least amount of wax lint and indexes the cleanest. Avoid mixing different bullet profiles or brands in the same mag, because inconsistent stacking is a recipe for a jam. And for you guys running the high-capacity BX25 mags, they are fantastic for drills. But remember, they change the feeding angle and put significantly more strain on the internal spring. Some rifles eat them up with zero drama, while others are a bit more finicky. Rotate your mags in and out of service, clean them after every heavy range session, and always bench test a new or repaired mag, both loaded and empty, before you trust it for a match or a hunt. Keep those mags healthy, and your 1022 will behave like the plinking legend it was meant to be. Moving on to one of my favorite ways to run this platform. If you want to turn your rifle into a movie-quiet tack driver without it becoming a finicky mess that fails every other shot, you need to pay attention to this next part: suppressor optimization and the carbon headache. Running a suppressor on a 1022 is quite possibly the most fun you can have at the range with your pants on, but doing it correctly requires a very specific maintenance mindset. A lot of guys just screw a can onto the end of the barrel and wonder why their boringly reliable rifle suddenly starts short-stroking or choking on carbon after just 2 or 3 magazines. You have to understand that adding a suppressor increases back pressure and traps a massive amount of filthy rimfire fouling right inside your action. When I set up a 1022 for quiet work, I start with the foundation: a factory-threaded barrel with a 1/2 by 28 thread pitch. Before you even think about pulling the trigger, make sure your barrel shoulder is clean and perfectly square, then thread that suppressor straight on without using crush washers or any other gimmicky spacers. I always recommend using a simple alignment rod to confirm bore concentricity before that first round goes downrange. That 30-second check can save your expensive baffles from a catastrophic strike and prevent a whole lot of range day drama. Once the can is on, you have to hard reset your maintenance baseline because rimfire suppressors get filthy fast. A dirty chamber is the #1 reason cycling gets weird when running suppressed. You need to be diligent about scrubbing the chamber and the bolt face, wiping down the extractor claw to ensure it is still grabbing rims, and popping that trigger group out frequently to blow out the caked-on carbon. Here is a pro tip for lubrication. Run a very light film of high-quality oil on the bolt rails, but keep the rest of the action as dry as possible. In a suppressed rimfire, excess oil quickly turns into a thick, abrasive paste when it mixes with .22 caliber soot. To keep the cycling reliable, I often swap out the factory extractor for a hardened aftermarket claw to fix those lazy rim grabs that happen as the gun gets fouled. I also highly recommend replacing the factory steel bolt stop pin with a polyurethane bolt buffer. This cuts down on that annoying metal-on-metal clack and reduces peening on your receiver. If you find your rifle is short-stroking with super quiet subsonic loads, don't panic. Start by switching to a standard velocity 40-grain load, which usually has enough oomph to cycle the bolt while still staying relatively quiet. Only if the rifle still struggles should you look into a reduced power recoil spring kit. And remember, your point of impact will shift when you mount a suppressor. Always zero the rifle with the can attached and take note of the offset. Finally, here is a trick most folks skip. Wipe that thick, waxy lubricant off the top round of your magazine before a long string of fire. This prevents the throat of your chamber from getting gummy and ensures your groups stay tight from the first shot to the last. The action overhaul and receiver secrets. We've talked about the trigger, the barrel, and the mags, but the real secret sauce of a high-performance 1022 lies inside that aluminum receiver. When these rifles come off the assembly line, the internal finish is, to put it politely, a bit industrial. Ruger sprays the inside of the receiver with the same finish they use on the outside, which creates a textured, somewhat gritty surface. When you combine that with a factory bolt that has its own machining marks, you get that classic clacker sound and a cycling action that feels like it's rubbing on sandpaper. To truly overhaul the action, you need to address the friction points. First, take a look at the top of the bolt where it makes contact with the inside of the receiver. Over time, you'll see wear tracks where the finish is being rubbed off. Many professional shooters will actually take a very fine grit abrasive or a polishing wheel and radius the back of the bolt. This smoother curve allows the bolt to reset the hammer with significantly less resistance, which is especially critical if you're trying to run those low-powered subsonic rounds we talked about earlier. Next, let's talk about the receiver sealing. That overspray I mentioned? It acts like a brake on your bolt's travel. By carefully smoothing out the internal top and sides of the receiver, just enough to remove the texture, not the metal, you can drastically increase your cycling speed and reliability. When the bolt can slide back and forth without fighting the finish of the receiver, you'll notice that the rifle feels more like a precision instrument and less like a stapler. Finally, pay attention to the charging handle and the recoil spring assembly. The factory guide rod is often a bit rough, which causes the spring to crunch as it compresses. Swapping this out for a polished stainless steel guide rod is a cheap upgrade that makes a world of difference in the feel of the manual of arms. When you combine a polished bolt, a smooth receiver interior, and a high-quality guide rod, the 1022 transforms. It becomes faster, quieter, and much more forgiving of different ammo types. It's these hidden mechanical refinements that separate the backyard plinkers from the true rimfire masters. The real-world secrets that Ruger isn't exactly shouting from the rooftops. Whether you're chasing tiny groups at the range or just want a suppressed squirrel rifle that never misses a beat, these tactical tweaks are your roadmap to success. Make sure you like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below to tell me what your favorite 1022 mod is. Stay sharp.